Welcome back. It is time to talk commodities. We have Manisha joining in, and today she's figuring out what this high-profile Trump-Shea meeting has meant for commodities. Is there some kind of a segue over here? By the way, there's some statements coming in. Purchase of soybean by China will start immediately on cue. Manisha.
But my graphics have crude oil first and then soybean. So I'm going to take it like that there. But soybean absolutely is in focus right now because it's a big agriculture commodity therein. But as I said, crude oil prices first. And we've seen prices decline 2.5% on month. And it's down by 16% for 2025 till time. When you look at the crude oil prices, well, this is the third straight month where you are looking at a decline continuing for the prices there. It also is, by the way, a third yearly decline that we are seeing in 2025. The last couple of years also have seen declines come in for the crude oil prices. Interestingly, while the markets are reacting to the U.S. Fed statement where December rate cut is not a foregone conclusion, is what we are dealing with right now. It's not so positive for many of those commodities. But for the crude oil prices, what it is also watching out for is on the conversation between U.S. and China and whether or not the U.S. will push China in sense of energy demand there, and whether we do see an agreement come in from there, whether U.S. tells China to not buy so much of Russian oil. So those statements is something that the street is waiting for right now, and is the reason you have seen a very, very jittery crude oil prices moving there. Apart from that, it also is going to be about the OPEC Plus meeting, which is on 2nd of November, where they will talk about the monthly quota for the month of December, and an expectation, as OPEC has been saying, that they can increase production in case Russian sanctions do work out and you see a supply disruption there. So plenty happening in the international markets in sense of headlines for the crude prices there. But now let's talk about soybean, because that seems to be making a lot of headlines right now. So let me take you through the numbers therein. If you look at the soybean futures in the international markets, well, they are trading at a 15-month highs right now. Last 1 week have seen prices gain up by 4% itself. And when you look at the month of October, we have seen the soybean prices gain up by 7% therein. Now, the investors are optimistic about the U.S. and China trade deal. We already are looking at those statements coming in from the U.S. president there. And then what we also have seen in the last 24 hours is a statement coming from China itself, which says that they have bought or started to buy first 3 cargoes of soybean from U.S. therein, and these are a total of 180,000 tons. I mean, that's a very, very small number to begin with. And also remember, the U.S. harvest is almost done with, but the U.S. crop size itself is quite big. So 180,000 tons perhaps is just 1% of what China buys, which is not so strong in sense of number. Now, this is a strong number. The U.S. soybean crop is 118 million tons. China's only bought 180,000 tons, so it doesn't really stand anywhere at all. Interestingly now, China does buy, and it's the major buyer in the global markets when it comes to soybeans. So total Chinese soybean purchases per annum are 80 to 90 million tons. They do buy a lot from U.S. to the tune of 20 to 22 million tons, by the way. But this harvest, they haven't bought anything. And 180,000 tons really isn't such a great number, as I keep telling you that. Now, when you look at overall Chinese buying that we have seen, 80% of the U.S. soybean has been harvested. It also is about China buying nearly 77% of what Brazil has exported this time around. And even as we're looking at September, October numbers quite strong, and they're, by the way, higher by 50 to 60% as compared to last year. So China basically seems to be buying soybeans from Argentina, from Brazil, etc., and not from U.S. But if there is this conversation that goes on strong, and as the U.S. president says, then the overall international markets perhaps would change. Remember, the soybean and dairy and corn are a couple of factors that U.S. has been discussing with India as well. India does import 60% of its edible oil requirements, and U.S. has been pushing that on as well. The only point of contention here is the genetically modified, because what U.S. does more of its soybean and corn is GM crops, which India does not buy or grow at this point in time. But with China buying that is a big support continuing for the soybean prices in days to come.
All right. Well, Manisha, thank you very much for that. Well,